We'll take a look at Australia's construction crisis. Some say we're on the brink of something much worse. Is it a sign of an emerging contagion set to infect other industries as well, or not? But first, the whole game of will they or won't they this morning. Economists are worried about what might happen at the RBA's meeting. A positive sign, though, for the economy. The RBA this afternoon decided to pause a rate rise, keeping the cash rate at 3.6. Of course, I know that's not what you're paying at home, is it? Putting an end to months of consecutive rate rises. So what's it mean for those with a mortgage, for renters, and of course those who've paid off their home but rely on fixed income interest to survive? Sky News business editor Ross Greenwood. Ross, welcome. I'm always mindful there's only about a third of us with a mortgage, about a third who own our own home, and about a third who are renting. So there's ramifications from today's decision for everybody. Were you surprised by the pause?
I wasn't surprised by the pause. They'd been pretty much flagged by the market for some time. Also, a little bit of evidence there is that Philip Lowe, the Governor of the Reserve Bank, is speaking tomorrow at the National Press Club. Generally, he speaks when there's something to say, and this really is something that needs some explanation. You can see here, over the course of the past year, rates have risen from 0.1%, the cash rate, to 3.6%. So this is the first time it has paused. The Reserve Bank also, remember, was the last of the major central banks around the world to start raising rates. It didn't really believe the inflation story at the beginning. It was the first to taper interest rates back to 0.25%. That was back in November last year, and now becomes the first of the major central banks to actually go on hold. So it really says something about the dovish nature of the Reserve Bank, but also its sense, I guess, that it believes that inflation ultimately will go back to its band of 2 to 3%. The big question is when, and if not, then how high do interest rates have to stay for longer?
So how long do you think we're going to have this pause? Have we crossed the Rubicon on dealing with inflation? Is it on its way down? Is this going to be perhaps another pause next month, or are they likely to move?
Well, you know, look, my sense is that they've just kept, if you like, the ammunition in their back pocket just in case they do have to move. There's unemployment numbers out next week. There's another inflation number before they really make the next decision in May. So one point about this is, if you look at the inflationary sort of, if you like, influences right now in Australia, you've got the ACTU wanting a 7% pay rise. You've got the government saying, well, they should back inflation, which is currently around 6.8%. You've got, you know, energy prices, which are going to continue to rise during the course of this winter and beyond. On top of that, you've even got other bits and pieces like rents are right now rising rapidly with the number of people coming into Australia with a lack of housing having been built. So, you know, you've got all these inflationary influences. So you can't necessarily say that inflation is stone dead, and it may well take another couple of interest rate rises to make certain that it is gone from our economy.
How are older Australians faring, Ross? Those on fixed incomes, the savers?
They're probably doing a little better, provided they're pretty aggressive with where they put those savings right now. They should be able to get probably easily 4% on their savings, whereas go back 12 months ago, they really were getting 0% on any of the savings they had. So they're probably a little better off. But the problem is that their costs, the basics in life, are rising faster than what their income from their cash accounts are. So there's the fundamental issue. This is the reason why I would also suspect that a government which is pretty flush with cash, because even you go back in the past month, the budget was well and truly in surplus. It's $20 billion better off than where they thought it was going to be in October last year. They will hand out pretty generous one-off cost of living relief to many middle and low income earners in the budget. That's almost without saying, because otherwise Jim Chalmers, I suspect, could very well be the first Treasurer since Paul Keating back in 1989 to deliver a budget surplus. But I would suggest the problems would be in the 4 or 5 years beyond that, when things such as the National Disability Insurance Scheme costs start to grow and other bits and pieces start to grow. I don't think you'd actually want to have a surplus at this stage, because you'd have to reverse it pretty quick smart.